Welcome to episode 3 of the Shiny Things Improv podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Balakchin, and this is a place for me to pick the brains of all my favourite improvisers. Today's guest is Naomi Peterson, longtime teacher and former artistic director at the Free Association, one of London's big two improv schools. Over the years, she's developed and starred in a number of amazing shows, including the critically acclaimed 3 that recently had a sellout run at Soho Theatre. Naomi was my level 2 teacher and more recently a coach to one of my teams. She has an unreal knack for saying just the right thing to get you out of your head and having fun again. And she's got so many nuggets of wisdom to share. Here's a few snippets of what we've got coming up.
Sometimes there's a sense of I have to do this all at the same time. I have to take every single class. I have to go to every single practitioner and I have to do every single workshop. And if you try and do that all at once, none of it sticks. We're so quick to either blame ourselves or blame the audience if something goes badly. And actually, there's a third factor, which is like, how are you and the audience working together? Sometimes the note is, you have to act better. I just shrivel up and die whenever I see those moves because it's what we've been taught is correct and it's literally going to take the fun out of this scene. But you can't be taking that on stage and be like, now I need to go to level 2, week 3 and be like, okay, then you're just not in the moment. Please cut this. I'm gonna fuck, cunt, shit.
Naomi Peterson, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. You are the first person from the FA on the show. Could you tell us a little bit about how you first got into improv?
Yes, sure. I think I trained as an actor. I definitely did. I trained as an actor and I was introduced to improv a little bit at drama school, but it's very different and not the kind of improv we do at the FA. I was working as an actor and about 2 years in I just started to get a bit frustrated with the lack of agency and the lack of control and not having any say in when I was getting on stage. And I think it was one January, I always get quite depressed in January, and I was just feeling blue and I think looked up an article in ways to feel better and things to do, and a fellow actor friend of mine had posted about going to improv classes. And I was like, oh, cool, I'll go. At that point, I was like in between sort of stages in my life. So I wanted to meet some funny people, I wanted to make friends. And I was like, maybe I'll meet someone I fancy, which is exactly what was going through my mind at age 25, so it's fine. But I was very much like, I want to meet someone. And I ended up going to now defunct, is that the word? The school, Monkey Toast, RIP. And got the bug instantly. And actually my first Monkey Toast class was back in 2013, March 2013. I didn't realise this at the time, but it was stacked with people who now I see all the time and who are amazing improvisers and who are just astonishingly talented. And it's only now that I realise like how lucky that was. We had like a really, really good fun class and everything that I expected to happen or had hoped would happen, happened. So I made loads of friends, met loads of really funny people, eventually found someone I fancied. I met my ex-boyfriend and my husband doing improv, so I was like, oh, okay, that did work out. But it's actually given me much more than that.
And how did you get involved with the FA? You were there at the beginning, right?
Yeah, so did all the Monkey Toast courses, got the bug, and then around... it must have been October 2014, I think they started. Yeah, I went to see their first show and obviously it was like, this is really exciting. At that point, they were just a team of people doing a show every other Sunday, I think, or even just monthly on a Sunday. And then they started doing classes and I wasn't going to do any classes. I was like, I'm broke and I've spent all my money on improv already. I don't need to do any more classes. But I was in the pub with Graham Dixon and a few of the petting zoo who are still potentially going as a group, and they were all doing the class, and I was like, oh, maybe if I just, I was just a bit tipsy. I was like, I'll go to a cash point right now. I'll get out the money. I'm going to give it to you while I'm drunk so that I can't go back on this. went out and got £140 in cash. Classes were much cheaper back then. And gave it to Graham and was like, okay, cool, then I can come tomorrow or something. I think it was like I squeezed in at the last moment. And that was like a level 3 class, or the first ever level 3 class that they had with Mike OT, and again, lots of lovely people. And because I kind of sneaked in at the very, very beginning, I was lucky enough to immediately be put into teams. And yeah, I didn't have to do the audition process because they were just working with what they had. So I cheated my way in to being a key member of the FA staff and performance roster, basically.
Amazing. I love the idea of just going to a cash point and getting cash out.
Yeah, because I knew the next day I'd be like, oh, I shouldn't spend the money but when you're pissed, you're like, no, this is a good thing. And honestly, more people should make decisions. Like, they're not all terrible. Sometimes you have that regret, but if I hadn't done that, I probably just would have got involved 2 months later. But I might not have been on my original Harold team. They started making the Harold teams and brought together the FA players like really soon after that. So who knows what would have happened. But yeah, that's how I got involved. And have been involved with the FA ever since.
You were on Harold teams, and then you were on house teams. Yes,
I was on my first Harold team, Sweet FA. So the first 3 Harold teams at the FA were the Wilsons, Sweet FA and the Cartel, all of whom continue to occasionally play. I think the Wilsons are the only ones that have a regular slot still, or at least are organised. But we still have a WhatsApp group, Sweet FA. And then we were doing Harold Night for a while, and then there was like jacuzzi shows. And then the next phase of the FA kind of grew from us wanting to make our own show. So after that, I came on as head of creative development in 2018, I think. And we started to build our own shows, which was really fun. So that was the era of the Nearly New Show, Starry Eyes, The Badge, and I'm Not Here to Make Friends, which was like our improvised reality show. And that was really nice to feel like this was like more of a fringe theatre and be creative and build formats. And yeah, that was a good time.
How does improv relate to acting, and how does it differ when you're on stage?
That is a really good question. I think it takes a while to marry the two sides of your brain in improv, and I feel like it's such a perfect blend of your writer's brain and your actor's brain, or maybe your comedian's brain. Maybe there's 3 brains and you have to blend them all together, but at the beginning it's impossible. So I came into it as an actor, but you're so focused on just what to say next and listening, and it's like all these muscles that you just don't know how to use yet, that I would say I found it very difficult to like approach improv with the same toolkit as I had as an actor. And I noticed that I actually found it more difficult to play characters or to use my acting skills because I was so working that writer's muscle. And then now I've found with practice, both of those sides of your brain come together. And I think that's when your improv starts to get a bit elevated. That's, in my experience, it's the best performers are both actors and writers, and they're doing both completely simultaneously. And you need to be great at both, and it's hard. So I didn't start noticing any benefits in my acting until a few years into my improv. Actually, that's not true. I noticed some like tangible benefits in that people I met would then sometimes be like, hey, I'm doing this, do you want to come and audition for it? So that was obviously like, it was cool to be in those circles of people that were creative and were making stuff, and that massively opened lots of doors. I got my first TV role from that very first improv class I did. Someone just got me in, put me in their show, and I was like, oh, this is going to be how it works forever. And then that didn't happen again, but I hear it does happen to people. But in terms of how it like affected my craft, which sounds like a wanky thing to say, I have noticed that it took a few years, and then I started to really see how much improv was helping me as an actor. And I noticed it when I was doing a play in 2019. Yeah, 2019. I just noticed how much better I was at listening, and how much more I was able to be present in the moment, flexible, changeable, and empathetic, and just very alive. And I think those are qualities every actor aspires to have, and I've always wanted to have them. And I think the improv muscle has massively improved that for me, because there used to be times when I was on stage and I'd just be in my head and worried about what I was going to have for dinner, or being like, I could be quite distracted, or I think I was more self-conscious as an actor. And improv really helped me get rid of that. So I really noticed like a stark difference. And I also noticed how it's such a minor benefit, but how much more capable I am when things go wrong in live shows, like live theatre shows, how I can adapt and be flexible. And if someone misses a line, I can usually smooth it over. And that's a skill that I didn't have before. And I think improvisers, like it will make you a better actor if you stick with it, for sure. Yeah.
And do you think the same is true the other way around?
Yeah, I do think that. I think sometimes it's really hard, like when I'm coaching people or when I'm watching something, I just want to say, it's a really hard note to give, because sometimes the note is you have to act better. And that means a lot to different people, and it's something you can't quite put your finger on, but of course it's about like commitment, listening, mainly those two, and like emotions, but like allowing yourself to really become these characters. But I think you can only go so far as an improviser without building your acting skills as well, because you can be funny, but we want to see people be real, and the funniest stuff is when you truly believe it. I would basically encourage anyone who comes to improv from a non-performing background and then falls in love with improv to have a little look at what other acting classes are out there, and then just, even if you did like 2 or 3 months of a Meisner class or like a character class or a screen acting class or just something, or like beginner's guide to acting, whatever, just like flex those muscles as well and build those, because often it's about confidence and experience. So you correct me if I'm wrong, you came from a non-acting background, right? And you've also now taken some acting classes, and have you found that's helped?
Yeah, I found it's really helped. Just, I think the thing that I got the most from it, I did a 6-week full-time Meisner course, and I've done a few other bits and pieces, but I think the biggest thing I took from it is that you need to do less than you think you do. And actually it's not about learning to be bigger and to express more. It's actually about learning to be subtle and more in the moment, and just letting your body be and feel the things that you're trying to feel. Absolutely.
It's about just watching people be affected is kind of what I mean. And I just think there's also simple stagecraft is something that we just take for granted, but it's so important. And I'm not saying that should be the first thing every improviser learns, but if you're doing it for a year or two and you're like, oh God, this is actually an art form that I really, really love, and I really want to get better, and I want to be as professional as I can at this, and this feels like a skill rather than a hobby, as in it feels like a skill and a hobby, then I think stagecraft, voice work, like being loud enough, like standing on stage and just looking confident and knowing what a stage picture looks like, where you are on stage, like how you're speaking to people, not just standing there and feeling self-conscious. Like the acting side of things can just help with that. And so often I could see the difference between a good show and a really good show is that I truly believe that the people in the really good show are like really committed, and that might just mean that they're present or being affected or just comfortable being on stage. So that sounds like I'm saying there's a big barrier, but I don't think there is. I think improv should be like an open, anyone should be able to come and do improv and get so much out of it, but also it's worth thinking about how you can build up your toolkit with acting, with writing classes, whatever. If it's something that you're passionate about, just keep going and keep learning. It doesn't stop, really. Yeah.
Is there a note that you wish you had got early on?
Oh, wow. What a great question. Oh, several, yeah. Do you know what? I'm thinking about this, so I will come back to it. But I think early on in your process, you get loads of notes, and you start to try and play them all at the same time. And you're like, oh, it's this. And then you go, I'm basically contradicting what I just said, which is don't try and do too much. But I think sometimes there's a sense of I have to do this all at the same time. I have to take every single class. I have to go to every single practitioner, and I have to do every single workshop. And if you try and do that all at once, none of it sticks. And then you end up trying to play 6 or 7 different intentions at a time. Go and do one thing, then bed that in, work with that. If you're like, that's working for me, great. Now it's time to try something else, but I feel like I bedded that in. That should be the pace. But yeah, I feel like in the beginning, especially when we fall in love with improv, we're like, notes. And then you try and implement them all at the same time. You get crazy stuck in your head and you've got all this, you're hearing all this stuff about how to get better and what you should be doing. And now I think, especially playing with peers and teaching, and it's harder to get notes. And I wish that I would get more constructive feedback now. But is there a note I wish I got back then? Maybe so much of it is about confidence. Keep going, you belong. Like, I think sometimes you feel like you don't belong in this show, or you can't possibly play with these people. Play with people, always play with new people, I think, as well, is something that I would encourage people to do. I think people get so comfortable playing in their teams, they find chemistry and they're like, oh my God, this is brilliant. And it's always going to be their best work when you play with people that you love. But then some people stop and they're like, why on earth would I ever play with anyone I didn't know or where I felt uncomfortable? And then you actually stop growing, because those shows can be super helpful and you can learn a lot from those, I think. So keep playing with people who are better, worse, different, confusing, whatever. Keep saying yes to different kinds of gigs if you can as well. Yeah.
You recently did a workshop called Back from the Brink.
Yeah.
Could you talk to us a little bit about that?
It's about how to rescue your show, basically. Like little tips and tricks and philosophies that you can, take on board and employ when you feel like you're losing the audience, when you feel like your show's kind of run away with you, if you feel like you're in a scene and it's not working, just like how to rescue that and how to properly invest in it. So like bringing your show back from the brink and like righting the ship. It sounds like it's going to be like really, here are my top 10 tips and it's do this and it'll change your life. But obviously take the workshop, I'll probably run it again. But it's a lot of it is, again, involves commitment, investing, making things matter, presence, confidence, and hopefully building up those skills and being alive and attuned to other people. And I think sometimes a skill that is really important in improv that it takes a while to learn and hone is how to like understand the relationship between audience and players. And when you first start out, like you I think it's almost like you see them as like a separate thing. And I think every show is so different, every audience is so different. Like, of course you go out and be authentic and do the show that you're, the style that you're going to do, but there are sometimes you can see, if you can feel it when an audience is you're losing them, or they're not quite with you. And often that will probably be because they don't believe you, or because you're not involving them, or you're not honouring what this is, which is like they're watching a show and they're expecting people to be confident and like adaptable and to look like they know what they're doing. And I think sometimes we can react to a bad show with just flippancy and take a step back, and the fear comes in and we forget that like it's about investing in a relationship both with your people on stage and with the audience. I guess I just mean there are two relationships. There are the ones you have on stage and the ones with the audience, and we're so quick to either blame ourselves or blame the audience if something goes badly. And actually there's a third factor, which is like, how are you and the audience working together? And with long form, they might not be involved, but you still can feel their attention. So what are you, it's like this cool thing that's happening in the moment in this room. It will massively depend on the time, the type of people who are there, how big the room is, what space it is. And actually, I do think you need to be attuned to those things, because ultimately you are still giving them a show. So that's not really in the workshop, but it's something I have been thinking about, because I think it's maybe it feels quite arrogant to be like, we're just going to do the thing we do and like in a vacuum, and you're here to watch, and it will be funny because we're funny. But it feels like it's more complicated than that.
I often feel like there's a temptation if you have a quiet audience to be like, oh, we're just a quiet audience. In the back of my mind, I'm like, no, I just think we didn't do a good enough show.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I think maybe there are exceptions, but I think most audiences, if you do a good show, they're not going to be quiet.
Yeah. And sometimes, obviously, you have an easier job when the room is full and the audience is so up for it and they trust you immediately. Like, your job's so much easier. But yeah, it is possible to do a good show and adapt to a quieter room. And I think it's so much about just showing them that you've got this and not going cheap, not going for cheap gags, not rushing, like actually having each other's back. Like, I think with a quieter room, you need to go even harder on teamwork, support, make things matter, commit, allow things to build gradually, but then also don't be afraid to go big, and then with like emotions and then like change moods. Yeah, I'm not saying pander to them. I don't mean, like wink, and I'm not saying mug to the audience. I think that's not my advice, but just be aware that they do exist, and it's not, probably they are telling you something. Don't abandon all your principles, but they're telling you something there's something going on between you and the audience, and it's important to just be aware of that.
What do you think is something that you'd like to see more of from teams on the indie circuit and sort of teams just starting out?
More shows, for sure. It's so nice to see new nights being built up, like properly marketed, like little festivals happening. Just more. That's what I want to see. And I think I want new teams to be making their own stuff, but also when you make your own stuff, keep going to watch stuff as well. It doesn't mean that once you've got a night, you're like, oh, we don't need to go and see that anymore. No, like, you learn by watching people who have been doing it longer than you, or you learn. Like, you're always going to learn by watching good improv or bad improv. So keep watching stuff, but keep making stuff as well, and do not rely on anyone else to give you any kind of part in a team, any night. There are so many ways, and your blog's so good for this, Aaron, like so many ways of building your own night and building your own community. And it's going to be more successful if you like the people that you're playing with. If you, like I said earlier, like they're always going to be your most fun gigs. Like, you want to play with them for a reason. You make each other laugh, play, have fun together, and then the audience will come with you. But I think there's just such a need to be accepted into like these Harold teams and go through these auditions and get into teams. And very rarely, maybe like 1 out of 5 times, do those teams end up having electric chemistry where everyone is, oh my God, it's a perfect team that someone else made. Like, very rarely are those teams like more cohesive than teams that you make yourself with people that you like playing with. So yeah, I would just say when I started out, we didn't have any, the FA didn't exist. We didn't have any auditions to go to. We didn't have any nights, so we had to make our own, and we teamed up with people that we liked. We did practice groups every Saturday, and on Saturday afternoon, I think for a while it was like, you'd have the afternoon, go to practice, there'd be about 15 people, whoever was free, then you go out and have a drink, and then you make friends. And that was just a huge part of people finding each other and discovering each other. So find the people you love, and be keen. And like, we need those teams to do stuff. Like, we need the new energy, because the old dogs are not energized in the same way. Like, we're jaded and like, oh, we have to put on another night. But like, it needs a constant there needs to be like a constant flow of new energy and new blood and people coming up. And I've seen some really great, inspiring, fun nights, and like your night, Aaron, obviously goes without saying. But Roof Prov was such an amazing resource. But, the Dish as well, I've just done their 4-day festival, and I went to one of those, and I was like, this is so great. This is exactly what should be happening. People just being like, okay, let's play, let's find a venue, let's do a festival, let's invite the groups we like. Like, it felt really vibey. It's bringing new people to improv. It's just so good. If you are in a group, don't wait to be asked. Just sort your own night out. Yeah, that was a real revelation for me when I
finished all the levels and I was like, God, I don't know how to do improv now. So I just took a bunch of levels until I realised, oh, you can just get a space and run a night. It's actually way less work than you think it is. And then you get guaranteed stage time.
And then you get to play with people that you're like, wow, they're funny.
Another thing that you've been teaching recently is how to be a more playful voice of reason. Is that something that you saw a lot, where people were being like, oh, I'm the voice of reason, I have to be serious?
Yeah. I think it's still a huge issue, to be honest, and I see it a lot. It's no one wants to do it, but they feel like they should do it, and they've been told that a voice of reason in the scene is so important, which it is in lots of situations. It's so important to be this grounded, straight person, and I'm the voice of reason, and I have to call you out, and I have to get you to say why you're doing what you're doing, and I have to frame things, and I have to be a rational, reasonable human being. And it's become like this job, and let's say you're two people in a scene, and it's one voice of reason, one unusual player, like, you're both still playing, and none of you is doing a job. Like, it's a kind of role that you can slip into, but it's whatever the scene needs. And I just see it being done like very robotically as, okay, this isn't my scene. My job is to like fuel this fun person. But there's something that I've been working on with people recently, which I think has clicked for me and is hopefully clicking with them, which is one of the fun things you can do as a voice of reason is you get to like properly point out and explore all the stupid, dumb consequences of the other person's unusual behaviour. It's basically like you get to be a writer and write the funniness with them and explore you get to explore more rather than just ask questions. You get to contribute stuff. It's a role that the voice of reason plays that I think gets left behind and gets neglected a lot. There's an exercise that I do now, which is like in one of my workshops, where you have, say, 5 people in a scene, and one person is the unusual player and the other people are voice of reason. And let's say you're all working in an office and the unusual player wants to hire someone famous, and the voices of reason are the voices of reason in that scene. The unusual player is like, you're advertising for a new accountant, and the unusual player is like, I think we should hire Brad Pitt. I think our instinct as voices of reason, the way we're taught, or not the way we're taught it, but the way we then interpret it and learn it, is to be like, no, that's dumb, that's silly, why would we hire Brad Pitt? And then be like, okay, let's get on with the scene. And then every time the person says, we should hire Brad Pitt, the voices of reason like, no, thank you, no fun. And then they shut down the fun of the scene. And it's like Jane from HR then comes in and tags someone out. It's like, you're doing something fun, stop it. And I think like I just shrivel up and die whenever I see those moves, because it's what we've been taught is correct, and it's literally going to take the fun out of this scene, like the Jane from HR. So in this exercise, your job is to play the role that you would play. Like, so let's say you all work in this office, like one of you maybe is the boss of the office, one of you is like the receptionist, one of you is the head accountant, one of you is the work experience. So you get to play these characters in this exercise, and then you get to point out all the dumb consequences that would happen if Brad Pitt was working in the office. So like maybe the boss would feel a little bit vulnerable that he wouldn't be the most important person in the office anymore. So you get to play that emotionally and be like, I just think if Brad were here, I would feel like maybe people wouldn't respect me as much and I'd get less attention. Maybe the people on accounts would be like, God, and what about the wages? It would be so awkward to ask him how much he's getting paid. Like, everyone will have a different reason for why they don't want Brad Pitt to work in the office. And I think it's just exploring. You just get to explore the fun of what if that did happen as the voice of reason. But it makes it so much more fun. You get to be a real person who's really affected, and you get to play and have fun. Yeah. And it does work when I do it in classes and in sessions. It's like, oh yeah, this is opened up to us now. You don't just have to say no. You get to come up with fun ideas.
Yeah, that's something I notice coaching and observing teams is also that sense of needing to negotiate and needing to win an argument about...
And we all do it.
When
absolutely. We start, and even now.
Yeah, absolutely. I catch myself doing it as well still. But it's so nice to then realise actually often that just needs to be so quick, and then you can just carry on.
Yeah.
And then you just need to bring it back. No one needs to win those arguments about whether the game is or isn't right or 100%. Rational.
Yeah, the lawyering thing, which is one of the first notes I was ever given in level 3 FA, was like, you're lawyering your point of view. And I didn't really understand what that meant at the time. And now I'm like, oh, I completely understand. But it takes a while of working through it and doing it and it not working for you to be like, oh, that's what it meant. And it is just like, why do I want to see two people like explain why they're right? No one wants to see that. But I think it's our instinct, because it's our instinct in life. And it's like that when you teach students, first of all, like to inhabit a point of view, or when you accuse them of doing something, you give them a gift and you're like, you've just taken a about to make it, why is like my first instinct, you've just taken a shit on the balcony, haven't you? Whatever. Their instinct is going to be like, no I didn't, because as humans we're like, why would I do that? And so it takes a while to unlock the sense of, hang on, as an improviser, it's more fun if I do that. We don't like being insulted or told that we're wrong or told off. And I feel like suddenly like, as the improviser, we're like, no, actually, don't tell my character that they've done this, when it's way more fun to be like, yeah, you're right. But yeah, it just feels it's like a need to defend ourselves in whatever situation we're in. And it's actually us as the improviser rather than us being in character. But yeah, it's obviously so much more fun to watch people own their dumb behaviour and be like, I feel bad about it, but yeah, I did. Yeah.
I did shit on the balcony.
I did shit on the balcony, yeah. Fair cop.
You've been coaching for many years.
Yes.
What do you think coaching and teaching has given you in terms of your improv?
Good question again. It's such good questions. Teaching is really valuable in a different way. I think, especially if you're teaching like the FA syllabus, for example, it's just so helpful to keep those ideas alive in your own head as well. And I notice, because I teach, or I have in the past taught across all the levels, and if I haven't taught one for a while, I'll go back to it and I'll always get something new out of it. So I hadn't taught level 1 for a couple of years, and then I just taught it in January. And there were moments where I was like, oh my God, like actually I'm looking at this afresh and coming back to this part is really helpful in a way I hadn't considered before, and it's helpful for me. So I think that's really, it's just super helpful. Like you're teaching yourself as well. You're always going to change your mind. If I listen to this in a year, I'll be like, I don't agree with what I said. I would have said something different there. I've done podcasts before where I've said something and broadly I probably will, but there are little things I'm like, oh, actually I would have maybe come at that from a different angle. So this is where I'm at right now and what I preach right now. But coaching I love because it's so particular and unique it's so bespoke, and so it really hones your analytical brain, and it helps me to go, oh, this is why that's not working, or sometimes this is working or this is not working and I don't know why. And sometimes I'll still watch something and be like, oh, I don't know what note I would give this, but all I know is that it's really funny, or it's not working, or I'm bored, or I'm super engaged and I don't have the exact tools to break it down. So sometimes that's actually really helpful to be like, you cannot like argue and analyse and explain your way out of every single scene and be like, this is why this worked. Some stuff is just about what is going on in the room, and some stuff has to be about instinct, and sometimes you could be the best improviser in the world and still do a stinky scene and be like, I can't quite help this. So it's nice to know that we can't make something perfect, because otherwise it wouldn't be improv. Yeah, there's other reasons as well. I love, when I can help, I really love it. So I love being able to go in and hopefully be like, what if we tried this, and then seeing an improvement, or seeing like a team suddenly enjoy what they're doing. So often I feel like my notes are basically like do you want to enjoy yourselves? And then like when that happened, everyone's like, wow, it was so good when we enjoyed ourselves and we played and we like had fun and we committed and we just pissed about and liked each other. But it's nice to be able to be like, I'm such a good coach, I just told them to have fun.
I mean, I can confirm that we had you for a recent Space Planet mission rehearsal, which was exactly that. You just said, guys, have more fun. And not just that.
No, it was very expert advice and very particular. But it
made
boiled
such a
down to that,
difference.
didn't
Yeah,
it?
it did. And that was one of the most fun practices I think I've ever had.
Yeah, me
just
too.
felt so good.
Yeah, I loved that. I was thinking about that. I was like, God, it's so uplifting watching. Do you know, it wasn't just because you were having fun, but it was because you all believed that you were good at what you were doing. And sometimes I also think you can have fun, but be like, I'm enjoying this, but I'm not, like, I don't know if I deserve to be here. It was like everyone took up space. Everyone believed in the world that they were in. And it was so magic. And it was like, yeah, I mean, I think that's a lot of what I tried to say in my Back from the Brink workshop. But there's lots more, so please do take it if it's on again, like just having people act like what they're doing is not improvised and it has worth and it's important. Like, why would you act like you're making it up and you don't know what you're doing? Because I think there is like a habit, especially in Britain, like there's a habit of us being like, and being a bit flippant, a bit tentative. And it's like clearly made up on the spot. But like, why wouldn't we like really aspire to do the most? I don't know what I'm trying to say. Just like act like you know what you're doing, because you do know what you're doing. And me as the audience member, when I'm watching people who know what they're doing, I'm like, oh great, I'm in safe hands. And if I'm watching people who are making stuff up and are funny, but I don't know, in this moment, like that sometimes it's funny, but I don't trust them, and I like want to trust the people. Yeah, it's kind of infectious when that happens. But yeah, look like you know what you're doing. Pretend that the words you're saying are already written, and they're not something. Don't judge them as they come out your mouth. Because if you're judging them as they come out, so am I. And I'm going, oh, maybe that is dumb, what you've just said. But if you could say the dumbest thing with the most self-belief and the most confidence, and I'm like, I am involved. There's no way that the writing we're doing is going to be perfect, because otherwise we'd be writing a sketch. But then great, we get to take the weight off. But there's also no way that it's going to be that bad. There's terrible writing all over the place. Just trust in what you're saying, believe in it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a note you've definitely given me in coaching, where I definitely judge things way too harshly, and so then I get in this headspace of trying to figure out the right thing to say, which then means I don't really make strong enough choices, because I'm trying to cycle through all the choices and choose one that feels right, and then I end up making not enough choices. I think there's definitely something about like doing it enough until you don't have to worry about judging yourself, or finding a way to just trust in whatever comes out and not judge it.
Yeah, it takes a while. And also it's all very well me being like, this is what you have to do, but there are still shows that I come into where I'm second guessing myself. I'm slightly in my head and I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't come in at this point and I shouldn't do this because this person will think this, or the audience might think this of me, and there's some insecurity going on there at some point, or the audience haven't been that friendly towards me, so I'm like, maybe I shouldn't do this. But I always, like, those are always the moments when I'm second guessing it doesn't work, and when I feel like they can tell, they just know that I don't have the same level of self-belief as I maybe normally do. And also I think if you're really listening, I'm not saying go on and be like so overconfident that you're like trampling, or like you're still honouring the practices of actual listening and teamwork and giving each other space. But if you are properly listening to what is going on, which means actively being in the moment and allowing yourself to be affected and just being, rather than actually adding loads of layers, then the right answer will just come naturally, and you'll feel it so instinctively. I know it's so common for us after shows to go, oh, imagine if I'd said that at that point. And the only way that is a good thing to do is if in the moment that was your instinct, but you decided against it. But like, why on earth? That didn't come to you in the moment, so therefore that was not the right thing to say. I think, especially at the beginning, we come off stage and we're like, I should have done this to this and this scene. But if it didn't come to you, how on earth would you ever have done it? It's such a self-flagellating way of being. You're just asking yourself to do something that you physically and intellectually and emotionally were not capable of doing at the time.
Yeah. No, that's very true. I definitely relate to that. I do that all the time. I think maybe the one time where it's maybe useful, it's just that often I'm like, oh, there was a much simpler choice that would have actually been way better. And I like need to continually remind myself of the reason I'm getting stuck in those choices, because I'm trying to think of these complicated choices.
That's what I mean, but that's the same thing. If there was a simpler choice, it's probably the one that you actually had thought of subconsciously, or that was your instinctive choice. Yeah. And if you'd made the more complex one, it's because you overthought it. Yeah, that is useful to go back and be like, oh, I was really overthinking at that point. Yeah. And sometimes there's a better choice than the one you made, but you learn all those stuff, all that. You learn how to be funnier in rehearsals and with all the theory and with coaching. It beds in eventually, but you can't be taking that on stage and be like, now I need to go to level 2 week 3 and be like, okay, then you're just not in the moment at all. It takes a while to be able to do it all simultaneously. Yeah.
Why do you think improv in the UK isn't at the level that it is in the US in terms of popularity?
I was going to say, I think it is at the level in terms of it being so great. I'm very proud of all the improv here. It's such an age-old question. I think systems and the way everything has been set up for a long time means that it's just so hard to change people's minds or opinions on improv. Obviously, it's just so ingrained in their culture that if you want to do comedy or if you want to be a performer, you go to an improv school. And they have all of the alumni to back it up who are like, I went here, I trained here. So it's just such a different system and culture. And I think, I don't want to blame anyone else, but I entirely blame like casting directors. No, I just blame the system and the structure of the system. And it would just take a long while to break through. And I think we are starting to see it happen. And hopefully it happens at speed now, where improv is more mainstream here and taken more seriously. I sound like a broken record every time I say this because everyone says this, but I just cannot stand anymore like reading a review of an improv show or an article about improv that starts with, there's nothing worse than bad improv. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's so lazy. That's not true. Of course, like, bad improv's excruciating, but so is bad sketch comedy, so is bad stand-up, so is bad violin playing. And also, those reviews tend to like always preface really good reviews of the show. So they'll start with, there's nothing worse than bad improv. This was good. Maybe it was one-off, but this was actually really good. However, normally improv's bad. It's like, why would I go and see a fucking classical violin concert and then be like, there's nothing worse than bad violinists. However, this was good. But maybe on another night it wouldn't be. It's just, people can't get into their heads that this is a skill, and actually maybe more than other types of performance, there is a slight variation in terms of whether it goes well or super well or okay or bad. But once you get to a certain level, you're never going to do a show that is at the level of a beginner. You're always going to be doing a show of a certain level. It would be such an outlier to go up and stink out, and if you've been doing it years and years, to suddenly stink out so badly that you're like, I can't even remember my own name. That'll be so strange. You are going to have a certain like boundary in terms of how well you pitch your range. Exactly, you're going to perform a certain range, and if you are a really good performer, your shows will always be at a base level quite good. If you're an exquisite, astonishing improviser, your base level shows will be good, and then your exceptional shows will be exceptional, and you're always going to have a certain level of professionalism. And maybe that is more with improv. There's a bigger range of outcomes than with some other art forms, but I don't think with comedy. I think sometimes, like, having done a tiny bit of scripted comedy myself and having done like live theatre, sorry, but it's exactly the same. Like, you could do the same, and it's weirder because you could do the same play one night and then another night and be like, that is a completely different play. Like, were we the same because we got influence, but it's the same script, it's the same blocking, and yet that night was a 5-star and that night was a 4-star. Like, stand up, you could bomb one night with the same material. So I think improv has the same range as any other comedic form has, and I just think no one goes to a stand-up show and starts a review with, there's nothing worse than bad stand-up, and I just think it's really annoying me. So I don't know how to solve that, but if we all just keep talking about it and we educate people that improv is like anything, some of it is going to be really good and some of it is not going to be good. And yeah, the bad stuff's going to be bad, but same with everything. I think maybe one of the issues is like there's no barrier to entry to improv, and there's no like regulation in terms of anyone could be like, yes, anyone can call themselves like a award-winning improv if they've won an award, or anyone could be like, I'm a critically acclaimed experienced improviser. Anyone could call themselves like a master of improv. It maybe it's like easier to do that than if you had another discipline. But yeah, I don't know, I'm ranting now. People need to just understand it better.
Yeah. I found it entertaining and a little frustrating that even that article about improv in The Guardian recently was mostly just like criticising improv.
Yeah.
And there were some quotes in there I was like, that just sounds awful.
Yeah. It's so weird, isn't it? I'm like, I'm not making it up. There's definitely, you could do shows and people come off and audience members are like, I loved that. Like, people love it. And of course, maybe some people might not stand up as much as other art forms, but or some people might not like improv as much as other art forms. Of course, you're going to have tastes that vary, but to universally tar an entire art form with the same brush of like, when this is bad, it's objectively worse than everything else, is really frustrating.
Yeah.
So there's a long way to go, but I think it's great that there are more improv shows in reputable venues, like central London venues, like Soho Theatre's got loads more improv on at the moment, and it's all done really well, which is great. And it's great that lots of big names are like championing improv. But when I think about improv, I want there to be more attention paid to the improv underdogs who actually keep the industry afloat. And that's the next step, is for someone to be like, oh, I've heard these people are good. There's no one, I don't know any of these people, but like word of mouth is, this is the team to go watch because they are good, not because I know that person from TV. I'm not saying I'm against having TV people in improv, but it would be so nice the next stage to have a team like do well because they are so good, and then they get more audience and then they get more attention and more opportunities. But I guess I'll end that little rant with the philosophy that might not happen in our lifetime. It would be lovely, but at the moment, improv is not something you do if you want to get any kind of riches, fame, or career success out of it. Like, it will benefit your career in so many ways, but not directly by doing improv. Like, it's very rare that anyone would get famous by being an improviser alone. So if you're expecting it to give you something back, you need to get out of it for a while. And I've had it definitely where I've done shows and gone, oh, that went really well and that person was there and maybe this will happen and we had this run in Edinburgh, and then you suddenly expect something from it and you expect that it owes you something, and actually you then need to go away and go, why do I love doing this? Because it is joyful, because I get to play, because it fulfills me, and because I love performing, and it's like the purest, most fun form of performance. And yeah, that's why I love it, and that's why I need to do it, not because I'm expecting to achieve something from it. It's hard. But yeah, that's my main advice to anyone who is getting the improv bug. Do it because you love it. Don't be like, if I do it for a year I'll get in this team or I'll be able to do this show, because it'll break your heart.
Or you'll get a husband, maybe.
Or you get a husband. Oh God, yeah, that was a slight joke, but not really. I really at that point was like, I really want to meet someone. Maybe I'll meet them in improv comedy, and it happened to work out. And actually, it does work out for quite a few people. Quite a few people meet in improv class. It's a good way of, I guess, if you've seen someone like pretend to be a horse and you're like, I still fancy you, then actually maybe you're like-minded, and you're gonna, if you can make each other laugh, it's a good place to start. So yeah, maybe you'll get a date from improv.
Have there been any challenges of being married to a fellow improviser?
Yeah, actually, yeah, quite a few. No, it's all right. At one point we worked for rival improv schools, and that was more dramatic. I made it out to be more dramatic than it was. It was absolutely fine, but it was fun to be like, we're rivals. But no, not really any issues. It's fun to be married or hang out with improvisers, because you know that they're going to yes and you most of the time, or at least some of the time. Obviously we make each other laugh. It was interesting. I have a stand-up friend who I've recently, in the last couple of years, welcomed into the bosom of my improv friendship groups, and he previously had quite a negative opinion of improvisers, and he was like, they're all lame and blah blah blah, as we all have had to deal with, like ugly stepsister of comedy or whatever. And he just had hung out with us for a night, and he was like, oh wow, it's really different hanging out with improvisers and stand-ups. And I was like, oh, why? And he was like, with you guys, it's just one person's opinion, but I'm inclined to believe it. He was like, with you guys, if someone says something and it's a bit funny, everyone else will work to help make it more funny, and the whole group will be like, how can we build this to be like the funniest bit ever? And so it's like we all are throwing the ball together, being like, yay, let's get the ball as high as we can collectively. And if the first person who slaps the ball hasn't slapped it that high, it's okay, it's just one step on the way to it. But with stand-ups, like someone will say something, and that's an opportunity for another stand-up to be like, but here's why I'm funnier than you, and here's how I can beat your funniness. So that he was implying that there's an element of competition when you're hanging out with other types of comedians. I don't know if that's true. Don't shoot the messenger if you're a stand-up and you're listening to this, but that was what he told me his experience was. And I'm inclined to probably believe a lot of it, because we are just like, yay, we get to do a funny thing together.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? Because that's literally what we're doing on stage versus what stand-ups are doing on stage.
Yeah. It's not every man for himself. It has to be like every man together. And it also means you don't feel as vulnerable when you say something in a social situation and it isn't funny, or it's like you've misjudged something, because people will try and will either gently rib you, but then it will become a bit and you'll be like, yay, at least my silly thing that I said ended up being a bit, but you won't get punished. And that's nice. It's nice not to feel like you're going to be punished in a social situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, my stand-up career lasted 3 gigs, and yeah, the last 2 were just so awful and then you come off and you're like, no one's here
for me to, you
just want to cut up and die.
Yeah, at least if you're improvisers and you stink out the room, you could be like, oh my God, guys, and then you get to at least share in the misery, and then you'll probably go your separate ways because you'll be heartbroken, but in a month he'll be like, hey, remember that gig that we had? But yeah, and
also everyone in the room knows that you just made it up on the spot, so
exactly.
I never feel as if I make something up that really doesn't land, I'm like, it hurts in the moment, but then I'm like, everyone knew I made it up.
That is exactly what I was trying to get at earlier. That's such a good point. Is trust the stuff that comes out of your mouth, because no one in the audience is going, this is their best stuff that they have thought of, honed, perfected. They know you're making it up on the spot, so why not just sound as confident as you can saying it and pretend that you're not? Like, the fun is in pretend. I think when you, like, ambition is to do an improv scene where it's almost, I just try so hard to make it into a proper script, like it looked like it could be scripted. That is very exciting to me right now. But we should all be doing that anyway, even if it's like a silly sketch. It's like, this sketch is probably scripted and it's intentional. And I'm not saying don't have those moments where you surprise each other and you laugh and you corpse and you're alive and you make mistakes. Of course have those, but make mistakes with confidence. That's more fun. And no one in the audience, you're right, is going, this is their best stuff. because how can it be? How freeing. I very much agree with you. I find any kind of writing of comedy a lot more pressure and a lot scarier than going up and making it up on the spot, because then I have to present something that people are like, this is what you think is good, is it? That's awful.
Yeah, you sat at home and you wrote this.
And you thought, this is generally your best work. And for all they know, I could have been writing it for years. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything about you that you would love people to know that's not related to improv?
I think it's all quite predictable. The things that I'll just tell you what I'm into at the moment. I always try, I feel like I don't get to sing enough in improv, and I'm just I just love singing so much, and it's so wanky. Like, I am a singer, and I'm like, I just love it. I love to sing. I love it almost as much as improv, maybe the same. But sometimes there's just the type of improv the FA does. I'm like, I don't get to sing as much as I want. So I really am big into singing. I'm an only child. I also here's the thing. I'm doing at the moment a foundation course on the side in psychotherapy and counselling. And I've only been doing it a couple of months, but the crossover is mad. There's so much stuff that improv has given me that has prepared me for this course, and I realise that improv has given me some skills that I've already honed that are very useful when you get into a room, like active listening, empathy, being changeable, being flexible, being attuned to the person that you're with and how they're changing and matching them, and all this stuff. But then there's also so much in psychotherapy and counselling that, like, when I've been learning all the theory, I'm like, oh, this person was basically like, we should improvise and that will make people feel better. So much of it, like, of the old psychoanalysts were like promoted play and literally free associating, and it just feels like it just really rang true that I was like, improv feels like a very therapeutic thing to do, and it has been good for my mental health. And I think, I'm not saying it's therapy, but it is therapeutic, and I think it has worked wonders for me, quietening my mind, letting me kind of work stuff out and allowing me to be present in the moment. So the crossover has been quite interesting. So I'm thinking of maybe bringing, like, next workshop being like, how can we apply some therapy principles how can therapy help us with improv? So I'm expecting 0 sign-ups, but it's really interesting, guys.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating.
It is, yeah.
Is there anything you're really excited about at the moment that's not improv related?
That's not improv related. What am I excited about? The summer. I'm really excited about it being warm again, and I'm excited to see who gets on SNL. I'm excited to see who they pick, and I can't wait to watch from the comfort of my living room. You going to audition? No, don't think so. I'm publicly declaring that I'm not auditioning, but I'm excited to watch it, and I really hope that takes off and flourishes, and that it means that, like, improv is something that people look to be like, wow, we can improvisers are comedians in their own right. So I'm excited about that. But I've brought it back to improv again. I'm excited about, I might be going to no, that's improv related too. I was about to say I'm going to Gothenburg. You're going as well. That's for an improv festival. I am excited about, no, Aram, I can do this. Oh, God. I can't wait to. Okay, I think we've run out of time.
Yeah, I think we have, but that's all right. So it's fine. Everything you're excited about is improv related. How
At the
wonderful.
moment, oh my God.
How appropriate for the podcast.
I said summer. I'm excited about summer.
Because it's going to be great doing improv in summer, right?
Yeah, everyone loves to watch it.
Is there anything that you want to
I
add?
missed? Just thanks for having me on. It's been a real pleasure. And I've been thinking, like, about my husband the other day was saying something about wisdom and knowledge and the difference between them, and I've been thinking about that a lot recently, and I think it's nice to be able to come to a place where you're like, ooh, I actually feel like 10 years have passed, and I'm like, I'm finally translating some knowledge into the next stage, which feels like I can apply it in certain areas. That's just a massive brag. I've just ended on a brag. I'm just basically telling you how wise I am. But it's nice. I was thinking about wisdom, and I was like, have I achieved improv wisdom? And I think I'm halfway there, but I'm not quite there yet. Improv wisdom is, oh my God, let us end it early. Cut this, cut this, Aaron, cut it. Please cut this. I'm gonna fuck, cunt, shit, swear, cut this.
I mean, there's no rating on this.
Cunt.
Naomi Peterson, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much, and see you soon.
Thank you, Aaron. Yay.
Thanks for listening to the Shiny Things podcast. Don't forget to head over to shinythingscomedy.com for loads more improv related posts, where you can sign up to our newsletter so you get all of our new content straight to your inbox. Until next time, I've been Aaron Balaction. Happy improving.